Hello, my name is Dr. Monique Crane, and I will be giving you a brief today about how to develop your resilience as a consequence of exposure to everyday stresses and adversity that you're going to encounter at university. The purpose of this training is to teach you that stress is not necessarily bad for you, and that stress can actually be really helpful in helping us understand the limitations of our own coping style, but as well as that, the strengths that we have that promote resilience every day. But stress is not just distressing or bad. Sometimes we can actually use it for opportunities in order to grow and develop our capacity for greater resilience. In order to achieve this purpose, you'll be instructed through a method that will enable you to better monitor your performance, evaluate the effectiveness of your actions under stress and adversity. By doing this, you'll be able to identify areas of strength, so your resilient capabilities, as well as areas for personal growth and development into the future. Stresses and failure are a necessary part of adapting and improving performance and resilience building. They're also important for building your tolerance to a variety of difficulties that you'll face throughout life. Psychological capability also plays a role in your performance, particularly in terms of learning to maintain focus and readiness during increasingly stressful situations. Stressful situations in education and work environments can help us to develop and strengthen our psychological capability to deal with more stressful events as they arise throughout our lives. This resilience training will explore how stresses that you experience during the first semester at university and in life more generally can help you to develop a greater capacity for resilience. However, we need to think about stresses in a way that allows us to gain the most benefit from them, is productive, and promotes learning from these experiences. As you develop your ability to evaluate the effectiveness of your responses in different situations, you'll be better able to identify whether your responses should be maintained or changed to better meet those demands. Resilience broadly refers to the capacity to bounce back from illness and hardship. Resilience is a modifiable capacity. That means that it utilizes resources, skills, and capabilities that you can change over time. But this also means that some of those skills and abilities may not necessarily apply across contexts, and therefore you need to be constantly adapting them for the demands of the situation. In order to strengthen your resilience, it will be necessary to engage with this process of adaptation. And we're going to teach you how to do that through a process called self-reflection, insight, and a willingness to find new strategies. It will involve identifying clear areas for improvement, setting specific and measurable goals for that improvement, and developing an appropriate training program based on those goals. So in particular, resilience requires us to monitor how we respond to demands in our environment. Monitoring might involve monitoring how we physically respond to demands, how we emotionally respond to demands, but also how we mentally respond to demands. Part of this resilience training will involve you developing a better understanding of how you personally respond to these demands and why. It is also important for resilience development that we understand our personal values and goals. It helps us to understand whether our coping has been successful or has fallen short from what we might expect of ourselves. Now, values are those things that help us to understand how we want to live, whereas goals are things that are a bit like tick boxes that we want to achieve in life, but we can tick them off. We can't ever tick off values because values are something that guide us throughout life. Now, the important thing about understanding and having a clear perception of your values and goals is that it allows you to personally evaluate how well you're coping in each stressor situation that you might encounter. You need to continually evaluate the effectiveness of your actual response in relation to your personal expectations, and those expectations emerge from these values and goals that we talked about. It is not about judging yourself harshly, but it is really just about taking personal responsibility for making improvements to the way you respond by first acknowledging that those improvements need to be made. You need to be willing to also try new strategies in order to meet demands. And so you need to decide to try something new on occasion. So maybe changing the way you study, or changing the amount of time that you spend procrastinating. You also need to consider ways of adapting to difficult situations as they emerge into the future. All stresses we encounter are an opportunity for growth and development. These exposures prompt us to evaluate the manner in which we cope and to think about new ways that we could cope into the future. We're going to teach you a strategy called self-reflection. You will be asked to reflect on past stresses 3 times over 2 weeks and respond to a series of questions designed to promote self-reflection. You will be emailed a link the day before the self-reflection activity is due, as well as the morning of the self-reflection activity. An additional reminder will be sent to you if this activity has not been completed by the afternoon of the due day. The intention of this activity is to help you understand your personal response to stress and to develop your personalized capacity for resilience. You will experience these benefits to their fullest extent if you complete each question and reflect on your experiences of difficulty and challenging aspects of stresses you've experienced during this time. The stresses in our lives help us to understand our resilience, not only in terms of where we're limited, but also in terms of the strengths that we have. But no one is strong in all areas, so stresses can help us identify where we could improve so that we can cope better into the future. You might consider your limitations and strengths in 3 broad domains. These are knowledge, skills, and abilities. Knowledge is what you know. So these are the kind of facts that you know about yourself, about the world, the type of facts that you might be learning during your university course. Skills is your ability to apply this knowledge in practice. They include actions you can take to utilize and help achieve some set outcomes. Ability is being able to maintain your ability to apply these skills and knowledge across different situations. It includes the ability to apply your knowledge and skills in a reliable and consistent manner, including when you're under stress. Sometimes we might have knowledge and skills to perform a task, but because of situational demands such as time pressure, we might have difficulty performing that task under those conditions. Now consider this example of where a student can utilize their knowledge, skills, and ability to maintain their performance under high pressure. In this example, you might determine that your arousal level was high and impaired your capacity to work well on your university assignment. You could ask yourself whether there are ways that you could manage your physiological arousal better. If you know a way to do this, such as mindfulness or breathing techniques, then you might question whether you have the skills required to carry these out effectively when you need to. If you do, then it is a matter of applying these techniques reliably in all situations when they're required, and this may require a little bit of practice from you. All 3 domains contribute to resilience, and you might be weak or strong in any or all 3 of these domains for that particular circumstance. Being resilient also involves recognizing when the situation has changed and we require new approaches. These changes may sometimes evolve over time, but they can also occur abruptly, and we need to face these changes, and resilience involves adapting to the circumstance. This slide is about the difference between stress and distress, as well as the potential performance-promoting role of stress. Stress is present in everything we do. If you weren't stressed, you'd probably be asleep, in a coma, or even dead. Just being alive means that your body is under a level of stress. Hunger, fatigue, those things are stressful. Moderate stress tends to improve performance. Too little stress leads to a reduction in performance because it tends to mean that we're bored or that we don't have very good attention to the particular task that we're doing. Resilience is therefore our ability to also monitor when stress might be too low but also too high to meet the demand of the situation. The important thing is that stress is not necessarily bad, and in fact, the lesser known type of stress, which is considered to be positive, is known as eustress. Eustress is the type of stress which is basically encouraging growth and development. Distress is the only problematic area of the stress continuum. High performance, by definition, requires a level of stress. Otherwise, it would be easy and therefore not high performance. It would just be normal performance. But distress is when stress builds up to the extent where the coping system or your capacity to cope becomes overwhelmed. There are two types of demands that you might encounter during a stressful event: internal and external demands. Internal demands are emotions, physiological reactions, and thoughts that you might have in response to the experience of a difficult event. External demands relate to the situation and those demands that the situation imposes on you. For example, an assignment that's worth 50% and you don't have that long to do it. The knowledge, skills, and abilities you require to manage the external and internal demands go hand in hand. The self-reflection activity is designed for you to critically assess how effectively you are operating in challenging situations. Through this, it will help you to understand your unique capacity for resilience. The activities that you will complete will involve questions that are aimed to guide you through a post-situational assessment. As part of this task, you will evaluate your resilience in a non-judgmental way and develop a personal plan for implementing and utilizing effective strategies for coping in the future and developing your resilience. You will need to consider some of the following things: what your response to a situation is as it happens. So this requires you to describe the demanding situation, how you responded in terms of your emotions, your physiological response, and your thoughts. Evaluate your performance. You will then also need to consider how successfully you've been at meeting your personal values and value-based goals. Identify key areas for improvement. This means that you'll need to identify and reflect upon some of the knowledge, skills, and abilities you have, but also areas where you might have been a little bit constrained and could possibly require some development. Then we'll ask you how you might make a plan for improvement. So, how you might go about gaining some critical knowledge and skills that'll help you into the future, and taking action. So then it would be great if you could implement your plan, try some new strategies, evaluate how they go, and adjust them where necessary. The self-reflection activity is designed to help you conduct a self-assessment. The purpose of this assessment is not to be judgmental, but rather to give you a plan for improvement going into the future. This tool is also designed to help you develop an essential skill, and that is of self-reflection. When completing the self-assessment activities, keep the following things in mind. Treat every self-assessment as an independent evaluation of an event that you just experienced and had to respond to. Do not recall a previous response or a previous event as a template for each situation. Just respond with respect to something that you have recently experienced and have not written about before. Write about what actually happened, not what you might have ideally liked to do. There are no right or wrong answers, so don't worry about whether you might be saying the right or wrong thing or responding in the right or wrong way. Everyone has different strengths and capabilities as well as different limitations, and the idea of this is to just create a plan for your personal development. Don't forget to use your supporting assets. These people can help you with developing your knowledge and skills in order to adapt. Supporting assets can be people like family and friends or peers that you find good to talk to, that you think might have some necessary skills that you'd like to learn and develop. You could also consider campus wellbeing. Campus wellbeing can be used to also develop ideas about new coping strategies that you can take into the future. But also Care MQ, which is available on the number provided. All these resources can be used as you go through this process. That's the end of the training today. There'll be no more videos. It'll just be up to you to respond to these activities as you go through. So please respond to them openly and honestly so that you can get the most out of those activities. Thanks very much for listening.